So, good evening to our viewers on the Sunday night Zoom. Noah, you can just sit down. Slightly different program from usual because it's the Abhosada Day. Today we had a ordination of 9 novice monks. Who will be here for the next few weeks to practice meditation, learn about Buddhism in this peaceful environment in the forest here, where the temperature is getting hot, summer now, which always brings its own challenges. But nothing more challenging probably than your own mind, keeping your own mind aware, alert, and particularly finding ways to overcome suffering. What we find when we come to meditate is that you might say there's 2 kinds of suffering for a human being. There's the ordinary suffering of the body and the mind, what we call the 5 khandhas. Physical body, feelings, perceptions, thought formations, sense consciousness. And then there's the more problematic suffering, which comes from craving and attachment. Where does suffering come from? Literally comes from tanha, upadana, bhava, as the Buddha taught. We attach strongly, or we cling strongly to this body, this mind, with a sense of self, or to these 5 khandhas we attach with a sense of self. And that's where our suffering comes from. For those who have seen the truth and realized the truth, and they've gone beyond this attachment, they no longer cling to the khandhas as self. So in Buddhism we call them arahants, those who have reached nibbana. So how do we get to the point where we can see or know suffering and then abandon suffering? Well, we have to keep practicing mindfulness and right effort, keep putting our mind, turning our attention inwards. And when we practice meditation, one thing that you'll notice is you're turning your attention inwards more and more. Opanayika Dhamma, bringing your attention inwards as opposed to letting your mind wander out through the senses, the eyes, the ears, the tongue, the nose, and the body, and then reacting to what we find there. And we often hear about how Ajahn Kalyano used to say ask yourself the question when you're feeling disturbed by sound. Are you disturbing the sound? Is the sound disturbing you? What's going on? We have to establish awareness and consider our experience if we're to find out what is suffering and where it comes from. We hear sounds all the time, but some sounds don't mean much to us. Some sounds have a special meaning for us, sometimes pleasant, we like them. sometimes unpleasant, we don't like them, and so we start thinking and proliferating based on that reaction. The pleasant things we like to hold on to, the unpleasant things we want to resist, get rid of, destroy. This is where our suffering comes from. This is the activity of the 5 khandhas that when we're not very mindful, we grasp hold of as self. If it's not sounds, then it'll be something else, isn't it? We look at things all the time, especially nowadays. Everyone's got a screen near them, a phone or a tablet or a computer. So if it's not sounds, it'll be visual images that pull our attention away. We say, oh, the world's so confusing. Nowadays there's so much technology, so much going on, so busy. Really, the world is just what it is. The problem is our mind going out through the senses, getting caught up into the world by reacting to it all the time. So coming to live in the monastery, practicing mindfulness, practicing right effort, we're turning our attention back in on ourselves, onto the body and the mind. Really, that's all there is, isn't it? There's a body and a mind that you can know in the present moment. Even that sometimes just seems too much. Say, you put your mind on one part of the body, say the breathing, one aspect of the body, or on the mind, just say one thought, one image or one thought, and we can only do it for a few moments, and then the mind is off, caught into craving and then attachment. And of course it ends up suffering. So we hear the teachers saying, well, if we want to get beyond suffering, we have to let go of attachment, let go of clinging. And then that's hard because people think, well, that means just letting go of everything and doing nothing. But we still have to live in the world, we still have to train ourselves, so we have to let go, but with wisdom. And that's something you have to learn. It's like a skill you have to learn. And wisdom in Buddhism is like that understanding of where suffering is, what causes suffering, and then let go of the cause of suffering. It doesn't mean let go of everything, it just means let go of the cause of suffering, craving and clinging. So like you have these 5 khandhas, this body and mind. Letting go doesn't mean just sitting there and allowing yourself to sort of starve to death or something. It means knowing the way these khandhas are and observing where clinging forms in them. So the most obvious place will be in your thinking, won't it? Whatever you think, you start to cling to, get caught up in. Some thoughts will bring us sense of peace, some will just bring us a lot of confusion, agitation, anxiety, worry. But it's the clinging to those thoughts that's the problem. It's not so much the thought itself. It's the meaning or the value we give to it, and then we cling to it and say, I'm that thought is me, or I own that thought. Clinging is really the sense of ownership. Same with feeling, isn't it? You have a painful feeling. When you're mindful, you can just know a painful feeling arising, and maybe you can even be just aware of it and not react too much to it. But when we're not very mindful, we tend to get caught into not liking, resisting the painful feeling. And that takes over the mind. So you have the painful feeling as the initial cause, that's the 5 khandhas at work, but then you have your reaction to it. And if it happens all the time or regularly, frequently, then you might develop a strong dislike for painful feeling, and it just triggers you. Even the thought of pain triggers us without even experiencing it. People feel that, for example, if you don't like the dentist because you've had a bad experience at the dentist before, just the thought of going to the dentist can set you off. Nothing's happened yet, no pain, but it's just the thought of it. That's because the perception has become very clear, very strong in your mind, not liking. Pleasant feeling the same. When we're not mindful, we tend to just hook on or latch on to pleasant feeling and constantly seek out pleasant feeling. Sometimes to get away from the unpleasant, painful feeling, sometimes just because we want more pleasure. So we're always thinking about things that we like, that we want. You'll see that in meditation all the more, because when you're meditating you don't have a lot of stimulus from the outside. If you're in a quiet forest or a quiet room, you're meditating, there's not a lot going on. So what does your mind do? Often it starts to fantasize and imagine different pleasurable things. The number one is what we call gama raka, sensual desire. Could be sexual fantasies, or imagining things that we really like, food, or going places, traveling, or getting something that you like, or having some really good experience that you think will be good for you and enjoyable, getting power, getting kind of status, all kinds of things we can imagine that start to bring us pleasure, or in the pursuit of pleasure. All you're doing is sitting there, but you're letting your mind wander. And that's the mind attaching to the khandhas again, clinging to feeling, looking for pleasant feeling. As we meditate, you'll notice this going on all the time. The dislike of painful, unpleasant experiences, and the searching for and the clinging to pleasant experiences. And that's the confusion and the disturbance of the world. It's not really out there, it's in our own mind. The Buddha's way is to develop awareness, clear comprehension, and then wisdom. Wisdom is considered to be the highest good in Buddhism. Often we say, I want to do good with my life or with my Dhamma practice. The highest good is developing wisdom, but the wisdom that sees the khandhas, the 5 khandhas, for what they are. Impermanent, suffering, not self, not to be clung to as self. That's wisdom. When you know that, then the mind starts to release the clinging, it starts to feel better. Why do you feel peaceful in meditation? Because you're letting go of some of that clinging, some of the delusion, some of the sense of ownership of the khandhas. But even meditation, you have to be careful, because sometimes you feel peaceful and then you cling to the peace again. Cling to the pleasant feeling, the peaceful feeling as self. You take ownership of it, so you want to hold on to it, keep it a long time, or if you lose it, you want to get it back again. Back with the khandhas, back with clinging, back with suffering. But when there's panya, or wisdom, present, we know that even the pleasant feeling of meditation is impermanent, suffering, not self, nothing that you can own. We say it's a condition of mind. Conditions are impermanent, suffering, not self, not to be clung to as self. That's something you can know through your own experience in meditation. As you're practicing mindfulness, you can see what your mind is doing sometimes. So there's letting go with wisdom is something you have to practice and know and experience for yourself as you meditate. It's not just something you believe in. I believe in letting go, or I believe letting go is a good thing. It's something you actually know from your experience as you realize where you're clinging. Clinging to pain, clinging to pleasure, clinging to different ideas and imaginations, clinging to the body, the way the body feels, the way the body looks, what's going on with the body. When you come into a monastery, you see that your attachment to your body, because you often don't get quite the comforts that you want. You don't get things the way you want, the way you would arrange at home, say. The place you sleep is not quite how you would like. The place you stay is not quite how you like. The food is not the food you would normally choose. It's food that other people bring and offer out of kindness, but it's not the food that you plan for. You have to make do with the food that's offered, the accommodation that's offered, the clothing, the robes that are offered, the medicines, the things you are offered. Everything can become a cause of suffering if you cling to it, can't it? When I was a young monk, they'd give you a bar of soap every 2 weeks. You had to make it last 2 weeks. But it wouldn't be a bar of soap that you particularly liked. It could be something very plain, with no fragrance, and maybe not very good quality. So it's enough to take the grease off your body and the smell out, but wouldn't be very pleasant to use. So even something as simple as a bar of soap, you could think about, if I could get some better quality soap. Everything can become a basis for attachment. Everything becomes suffering. You can suffer over a bar of soap, just as you can suffer over a house or a car or a mobile phone. It doesn't matter how small the thing is, the item is. If you attach, you suffer. We attach to food. Not just the taste, but our ideas about food. When I was a novice monk, there was another novice monk from a European country. This was when I was in Thailand. He had very strong views about correct diet. Got to eat a balanced diet. Got to have enough vegetables, protein, all the right vitamins. Not too much fat, not too much sugar, not too much carbohydrate. He'd studied it all and he had very clear ideas. And then of course the food we were offered was just whatever the villagers were kind enough to put in our bowls. He got very annoyed, very upset with the food because it didn't match his ideal, his view on what a balanced diet is. So he suffered. The food was simple, but it was good enough, and there was enough of it in volume, but it didn't meet his dietary requirements. So he suffered. Ajahn Chah used to say, when you come into the monastery, or when you just start meditating as a layperson, the same. Your biggest enemies are what we call ditthi and mana. Ditthi means your views, attachment to views about what is right, what is wrong, what you like, what you don't like. Mana is conceit, what you say, sense of self or conceit. The combination is this strong sense of self that comes up all the time and produces all the desires, wanting this, not wanting that, liking this, not liking that. Generally what we like, we say is good and right. That fits our view on the world. This is good for me because I like it. And what we don't like is bad for me, that's wrong. Get rid of that. Could be your food or your drink or your brand of soap or your accommodation, or it could be other people, or it could be the weather, it could be anything. So it's a kind of shorthand in the monastery. If you're suffering, usually it's views and opinions and conceit. And conceit isn't always arrogance. Quite often it is superiority, feeling, I know better. I know a lot, I've read a lot, I've studied a lot of Buddhism. But sometimes it's inferiority as well. It's another kind of conceit. Better than, same as, worse than, or inferior to. Sometimes we feel bad because we feel, oh, I can't meditate as well as that guy, or I can't chant as well as that guy, or I don't wear my robes as well as that guy. I'm no good, I have no barami, no merit. Or often people who have studied a lot, read a lot, heard a lot, I know a lot, I'm better than everyone because I've read a lot. If you learn some Buddhism, learn some Pali, or learn some different terminology, maybe you think you're better than everyone. Or some people get into the, I'm just the same as everyone, we should all have exactly the same. We should all get the same food, the same accommodation, exactly the same experience. We have to be equal and fair for everyone, which is impossible. You have to go sometimes according to age, or according to who ordained first, sometimes in the way things are handed out, or the way you do things, the way you sit, the way you go in the line of alms round. It's one who ordained first, even by 1 minute, goes ahead of one who ordained second. When monks meet and they don't know each other, they have to ask each other, well, when did you ordain? What was the date? If they ordained on the same day, you have to ask, what was the time that you ordained? So sometimes you meet a monk, he was ordained 1 hour before you, or 1 hour after you. That determines who goes first in the line. It's not conceit that determines it, it's just time of day that you're ordained. This is where your suffering comes from. Attachment to conceit, views, feeds a lot of mental proliferation, feeds these reactions to our experience. How does it come out? Well, maybe you're meditating, you have some great unhappiness in your mind. I don't deserve this, I deserve better. For me, when I was a novice monk, I was given a cup from the kitchen. Everyone else in the monastery had a stainless steel cup. I was given a plastic cup. And it wasn't even a new plastic cup, it was an old one. Stained, scratched, dirty. You couldn't really put hot water in it because it was plastic. It was pretty hopeless. So you could put water in it, good enough. But that was about it. It looked horrible. Somebody even threw it away one day. I had to go to the rubbish bin to pick it up. I said, that was my cup you threw away. So there's me sitting with this plastic cup thinking, when am I going to get a stainless steel cup? Everyone else has got one. Life is not fair. I deserve a stainless steel cup when I got a plastic cup. That's how it is in a monastery. The simplest thing can become a source of suffering. I don't deserve this, or maybe you get ill. I deserve to be healthy. I don't deserve this illness. It shouldn't happen. One year, we had somebody ordained as a novice, and then on the first day they fell over and broke their wrist. Must have hurt a lot, and it made life very difficult, but they soldiered on very good. But probably had a few thoughts, this is not fair. Came to do my novice program and then I broke my wrist. Some people get ill when they come to do their novice program. It's like, this is not fair, this shouldn't happen. It's just the mind reacting, attaching to the experience. Sure, we all want to be healthy. No one wants to be injured or ill, but sometimes it happens, doesn't it? Things don't always go our way. The important thing is, are you looking to see where the cause of suffering is? Craving, attachment, clinging to the khandhas, or are you just following the suffering or the mental proliferation, the moods, the emotions? Sometimes it's flies. Sometimes there's so many flies going in your mouth. You eat food and a fly goes into your mouth with the spoon. There shouldn't be so many flies. This is not fair. Life is not fair. I don't deserve this. If you trace it back, you could probably find this is just conceit. Not fair. He got more than me, she got more than me, she got less than me. Same with jobs and work, isn't it? They did more than me, they did less than me. I do my job better than them. I deserve more than this because I do it better, they do it worse. It's either better than, same as, or worse than. But what's behind it is attachment, craving, clinging, conceit, views, suffering. So you come and live in a monastery or just practicing Buddhist meditation at home. This is really what you're looking at more deeply than anything else. Craving and attachment, how it causes suffering. What sorts it out is effort, and the effort to bring up mindfulness, awareness, clear comprehension, and then some wise reflection to develop wisdom, insight. Ajahn Chah's simple reflection, which worked for him, was it's not sure, it's not certain. One day you're happy, one day you're not. You like something, then you don't. It's not sure. Every view, every opinion, every thought, every reaction, every mental train of thought, every mental proliferation is not sure, not certain. If you introduce this wisdom, that helps you to let go of some of that attachment. When you don't see the uncertainty, the impermanence of these things, you become them. You attach to the khandhas. You suffer. You may have your own word. Ajahn Chah had not sure, he'd use that, not sure, not certain. It's not sure. If you can see that, then your mind has a certain space in it, spaciousness, freedom from suffering. So there's a few reflections tonight on the practice of letting go of attachment, the cause of suffering. I'll leave it there, the talk, and afterwards, if anyone has any questions, we'll endeavour to answer them for you.